Hello, and welcome to this Masterclass Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that is honestly one of the most critical yet straight-up tricky skills in pattern making. We are going to master the basic sleeve block. If you've ever wondered how master tailors get a sleeve to look so perfectly smooth on the outside while still actually letting you move your arms, well, you're in the exact right place. We're translating a comprehensive, professional, and very mathematical step-by-step method directly from the fashion design syllabus into a visual guide you can actually use.
So think about this for a second. Have you ever put on a jacket or a shirt, and the second you try to lift your arms, the whole garment just pulls? Or maybe you notice this really unsightly puckering right at the shoulder seam. Why does that happen? Well, fitting a three-dimensional moving human arm into a flat, two-dimensional armhole curve is basically the ultimate tailoring test. It requires absolute mathematical precision. So today, we're going to solve this engineering puzzle together by breaking down the exact drafting method used by the pros.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our structured roadmap for today's explainer, drawn straight from Class 7 of the syllabus. We're starting with sleeve anatomy and basics, then looking at the crucial measurements needed. After that, we hit the main event, the 7-step drafting guide. Then we'll cover cappies and notches, highlight some beginner mistakes to avoid, and finally wrap up with advanced techniques.
Section 1. Sleeve anatomy and basics. Let's get our foundational vocabulary locked in before we even think about drawing a line.
First up, meet the absolute star of the show, the sleeve cap, sometimes called the sleeve head. This is that uppermost curved part of your sleeve pattern that mathematically fits right into the bodice armhole. You'll also hear the term cap height, which is literally just how tall or raised this curve is. And here's a golden rule for you. A higher cap height gives you a very structured, formal fit. Think of a Sherp suit jacket. A lower cap height, that gives you a much more relaxed, looser fit, kind of like what you'd see in a kimono or a dolman sleeve.
Moving down the pattern, we've got our key structural lines. The bicep line is the horizontal one sitting right beneath the sleeve cap, marking the thickest part of your upper arm. Further down is the elbow line, obviously marking the elbow joint, which is super vital for long sleeves. Running straight down the exact center vertically, you've got your grain line, which makes sure the fabric actually hangs properly when worn. And finally, the underarm seams. These are the side seams of the sleeve that'll eventually connect to the side seams of your bodice. Keep these in your back pocket. They are the building blocks for what we're about to do.
Section 2, crucial measurements needed. We know the terms, so let's prep. And here is a massive takeaway for today. A sleeve is never, ever designed in a vacuum. To draft this accurately, you need some very specific numbers. You need your sleeve length, bicep, elbow, and wrist circumferences. But listen up. The absolute most vital measurement here is the armhole circumference. And you do not measure this on the body. You measure it directly from your front and back bodice drafts. Literally, just walk your tape measure right around that curve on the paper. If your sleeve cap and that armhole mismatch, you are guaranteed to get fabric pulling and wrinkling. Oh, and a quick pro tip for measuring the arm itself. Always take these measurements with the arm relaxed and at a slight bend. Don't lock your arms straight. In real life, our arms naturally rest with a slight bend, right? Your sleeve needs to be comfortable in that resting position. Section 3, the 7-step drafting guide. All right, we have our terms and our measurements. Grab your drafting paper because it's time for the core mathematical action. Let's move to and see how this builds our foundation. Step 1, draw a straight vertical line down your paper that's equal to your sleeve length. This is your grain line. Let's just call the top point A and the bottom point B. Step 2, drop down from point A to mark your bicep line. But how far down? Well, that's step 3. Your cap height is typically 1/3 of your armhole depth. At that level, you draw a horizontal line. The width of this bicep line, from the center going out to each side, is exactly half of your armhole circumference. Now step 4 is where the magic really happens. You draw a smooth curve from the left bicep point up through point A and down to the right bicep point. But, and this is crucial, it is an asymmetric curve. The front cap curve absolutely must be deeper and more scooped than the back cap, which is a bit flatter. Why? Because of human anatomy. Our shoulders and arms sit slightly forward. We aren't perfectly symmetrical front to back.
Continuing our draft, step 5 is super simple. Just draw straight lines from the outer edges of your bicep line straight down to the bottom to create those underarm seams. Step 6 is specifically for long sleeves, marking the elbow line. And pay attention here because this is a huge correction from older methods. The elbow line is not exactly halfway down the arm. Anatomically, your elbow actually sits a bit lower. The correct formula is half of your sleeve length plus an additional 2 to 2.5 centimeters down. If you just cut the length in half, your sleeve is going to bend so awkwardly. Finally, step 7, taper the wrist width. If you want a fitted shirt sleeve, narrow the width at point B based on your wrist measurement plus a little bit of ease. For a straight, wide sleeve, you just bring those underarm seams straight down.
Section 4. Cap ease and notches. Okay, so you've drawn the basic shape, but we are definitely not done. We're getting into the real professional secrets now, the stuff that separates the amateurs from the master pattern makers.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the concept of cap ease. If you take your tape and measure the curve of the sleeve cap you literally just drew, it should not be exactly equal to your bodice armhole circumference. It actually needs to be 2 to 4 centimeters larger. I know, it sounds counterintuitive, but think about it. Your arm is a 3D cylinder, and the armhole on the bodice is flat. This extra 2 to 4 centimeters is your cap ease. It allows the fabric to cup beautifully right over the roundness of your shoulder joint so you can actually move. When you're sewing, this extra fabric gets gently gathered or eased in without making any actual folds. But a word of warning, if you add more than 5 or 6 centimeters of ease, you're going to end up with very visible, ugly puckers right on the shoulder seam. And that brilliantly leads us into the notch matching system. Because the front and back of the sleeve cap are shaped so differently, as we just saw, you absolutely cannot sew them in backward. It just won't work. To prevent this, the industry uses a foolproof standard notching system. The top center of the cap gets a single notch that aligns with your shoulder seam. Then the front curve of the sleeve gets one notch to match the single notch on the front bodice armhole. The back curve of the sleeve gets 2 notches to match the 2 notches on the back bodice armhole. Just remember, 1 in the front, 2 in the back. Aligning these 3 points correctly is literally the ultimate key to a perfectly fitting sleeve. Section 5. Beginner mistakes. All right, before you even think about cutting into your good fabric, let's look at some common pitfalls. Knowing what goes wrong is just as important as knowing how to do it right. Let's rapidly fire through 4 fatal flaws beginners always seem to make. Number 1, ignoring cap ease. If you make the sleeve cap the exact same length as the armhole, you will literally not be able to lift your arm above your waist. Number 2, assuming symmetry. If you draw the front and back curves exactly the same, the sleeve is going to twist really uncomfortably around your bicep. Number 3, cutting the fabric off grain. If your center vertical line doesn't perfectly align with the straight weave of the fabric, the sleeve will hang diagonally and look totally distorted. And finally, number 4, skipping the notches. If you do this, you will inevitably sew the right sleeve into the left armhole or sew it in backwards. And trust me, unpicking armhole seams is an absolute nightmare. Don't do it. Section 6, Advanced Techniques. To round out our explainer today, I want to elevate things a bit and give you a sneak peek into what comes next once you've mastered the basics. So what we drafted today is a single-piece sleeve. It's fantastic for casual shirts, blouses, and dresses. But if you look closely at a high-end tailored suit jacket or a winter coat, you'll see they actually use a 2-piece sleeve. This is an advanced construction involving a larger upper sleeve piece and a smaller undersleeve piece. This dual panel method actually builds a permanent structured curve right into the fabric itself, perfectly matching that resting bend of a human arm we talked about earlier. It gives a highly professional, pristine finish that a flat, single-piece block just can't quite pull off. Furthermore, if you're making tailored button-up shirts, you aren't just leaving a tapered wrist at the bottom. You're going to add a sleeve placket and a cuff. The placket is that finished slit or opening near the wrist that actually lets your hand pass through, and the cuff is the structural band that buttons it shut. These elements aren't drawn into the basic block directly. Instead, they are additional, separate pattern pieces that you draft and attach onto the foundation we've just built today. Which brings us to your mission for today. Have you measured your bodice armhole yet? Because you cannot draft the sleeve without knowing that precise circumference from your front and back slopers. So grab your measuring cape, walk it along that armhole curve, and try applying these 7 steps today. And don't forget to compare your final cap length to ensure you have that magical 2 to 4 centimeters of ease. Next time, we're going to expand our wardrobe even further by diving into skirt blocks, building foundational patterns from the waist down. Until then, ask yourself, could a simple 2-centimeter mathematical adjustment completely change how your next handmade garment actually feels when you wear it? Try it out and see for yourself. Happy